Does anyone want to type something in the chat? Okay, this is weird. I feel like I'm talking to myself. Can anyone try to speak in the call? I can't hear anyone.
Hello.
Ah, somebody said hello. Okay, and then just quickly, can you see the slides?
Yeah.
There's a screen share on. Can you see the slides?
Business intelligence, BI processes and tools.
Awesome. Okay. So I think we're ready to go. So thank you very much. Sorry, everyone. It's a new laptop that I've got, and I don't know what's happening with the video, but it is nice to know that the audio is working, and that you can see the screen share. So the video is not that important. So I just want to let you know that we're recording this class. So good evening, everyone. I think so far we've only got 16 people on this call, but for the sake of time, we need to carry on going. Please, if you want to communicate with me, you can use the microphone, but I think maybe it's better to also use the chat box. Let's just see how things go, but you are allowed to. Just please respect other people if they're talking on the line. Remember that we've got a few people that are joining, so it's a bit difficult to coordinate communication. So if someone's talking, just wait and then just let them speak, and then you can speak. And for the sake of just keeping the class quiet to some degree and being able to hear me, just keep your microphones muted, which sounds like you guys are doing anyway, which is great. So today's class is actually quite important, but what I do want to also show you, I just want to start out. I got a very interesting email I got two interesting emails from students. I'm not going to mention their names, but the first email was about OP1, and the person was saying that maybe I deducted the wrong marks from them because I said that that's minus 5% per day. And they calculated the 5% off their marks. So let's say you get 50 out of 100. 5% of 50 is 2.5%. So they did a calculation like that, and they thought that it was right. So just for clarity, just to clarify, 5% per day means 5% out of 100, regardless of what your mark is. So you'll lose 5%, 5 marks out of 100, or 5%. Okay, out of 100. Okay, so this is just for clarity. The second thing is that there was a question about OP2, and a student was asking, oh no, how do we answer the last question for OP2? And I was quite shocked because there are no questions, there's one instruction on what to do. So what people are doing is they are getting a little bit muddled up between the instructions and then the outcomes of the class. So actually, I just want to change the screen share quickly. I just want to show you something in the study guide. So I'm going to actually just change my screen share. Let me just do this quickly. I'm going to stop sharing that. I just want to share this. Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay, wonderful. Robin says yes. Okay. So I don't know, it's flickering on my side. So I don't know if it's flickering. If it is, I do apologize. But from my side, it's flickering. But I just want to show you for OP2, there's an instruction over here. It's in a separate block. And there's one instruction over here. And it says, write an opinion paper for 2,500 words in your own words, centered on factual information, discussing the various BI processes and tools and the application. I want to see clearly how you categorize BI tools and processes and how they work together to create a BI solution. So this is what you had to do for the OP. Okay. What the other student was talking about is not this. They were trying to answer these assessment criteria. Now the assessment, actually maybe it's not so clear, but the assessment criteria over here doesn't link to the OP as a form of assessment, but this assessment criteria is actually for okay, so that's not for, this is not to do, this is not the OP. This is for your final assessment. Okay, so just to distinguish what's the difference, is that this assessment criteria is not for the OP, this is for the final assessment. So don't answer this, just answer what's here in the instructions and focus only on the instructions and not on the assessment criteria that's mentioned above. This is for the final assessment and not the OP. Okay. This first part, distinguish this assessment, okay, that's for OP1. For OP2, is there any assessment criteria? I mean, 4. Okay, so the assessment criteria is not linked to the OP. Okay, so I just want to distinguish, I hope we're all clear on that, so you can understand that going forward, what's happening. Okay, so I just now want to go back, let's go back to the class. So just some general feedback quickly. The general feedback on the opinion papers is that, number one, let's start with the positive. Overall, I think you understood the difference. I think it's quite an easy opinion paper, and I was quite happy. I think that the average mark is in the high 60s. The highest, I think, was 84 or somewhere around there. And the lowest was exceptionally low for 2 reasons. I'm going to get to that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that when you're looking at your opinion papers for this round, is that you guys, a lot of people handed in late, a lot more than usual. So I'm just counting. About 15 people, 15 out of 60, so that's a quarter, handed in late, which is not good. Sorry, if you've joined the call, can I just ask you to mute? Whoever's just joined the call. Okay, so yeah, 15 out of 60. So it's a quarter of you lost marks for handing in late, which really is quite bad. I didn't expect that, especially for the first opinion paper. And then the next thing is there were about 4 or 5 students that got warnings for plagiarism. So just to remember that this is a opinion paper. It's based on opinion. So there's no copying and pasting of anything. You're meant to write in your own words. And what these people looked like they did is it looked like they copied paragraphs, not everything, but certain paragraphs, and then they changed a few words in a paragraph. And if you do that, and if you carry on doing that, if I sent you a warning, it means that you need to change the way you do it. You're not doing it the way that we're expecting you to do it. That's something you're doing is not working. It's picking up a correlation between your work and work that's on the internet. So please, just it's a next time there's going to be no more warning for this opinion paper, that you can't actually do that. You need to write in your own words, and that was less than well, it was about 8% of the class. There were about 5 people that got plagiarism warnings. So those are the 2 things, are just 2 areas that I think can be improved. Is be careful with the plagiarism. It's meant to be in your own words. And the second thing is just don't hand in late, because you really are going to lose marks. And I don't think it's a little bit unnecessary to lose marks for that. So great. So on that, let's start this class 3. This is a very, very important class. We're going to spend some time discussing the difference between BI tools and processes, and we're going to deal with them and see how they work together to create a BI solution, which is the exact instructions, the exact thing you had to do, same thing you had to do for your opinion paper. So it's your opinion paper. So whatever I discuss now is kind of like what I expected to get in the opinion paper. And just once again, also, everything I'm discussing now comes from my sources. And same in your opinion paper, you weren't meant to go around and Google what are BI tools. If you go and just do a random Google on BI tools, you're going to come back with a lot of information that's not in line with what I'm going to say. Because there's different ways that people categorize BI tools and BI processes. And so I gave you specific guidelines as to what to focus on. So just a reminder about that. So let's quickly pull up the class notes. So this is class 3. This is a very important class. It's the crux of what we're doing. I think it really is a crucial class. If you don't understand this class, you might find it difficult to understand sort of what we're going to be doing and how BI really works and how these things fit together to create a BI solution. So if we start in this class, I'm going to start by really I'm going to start at the end, basically. So this is a summary of, this will help you determine how you understood BI tools and BI processes. And at the end, we can discuss this. I think it's not a good time to discuss now. So this just shows you as to what I was expecting, what I consider BI tools and processes. So we've got BI processes are here on the left, and we start with ETL, which is actually 3 processes in one. It's considered a standard, but it's extracting, transferring, and loading. So in language, in common language, if I ask you to extract something, it's a process. It means you take it out. If I ask you to transfer, it means you take from one place. It can mean different things, but really every year it means take from one place and take from one format and put it into another format. And if I ask you to load something, it's a process again, it's a noun, you're going to be doing something. So these are, sorry, it's verbs, not nouns, sorry, these are verbs. They're doing words. If you're mining something, you're doing something. If you're extracting something, you're doing something. If you're transferring something, you're doing something. It's a process. Okay. So the tools, a database is not a verb. It's a noun. It's an item. So your items, your BI tools are items. So database, data mart, data warehouse, SQL is a tool. Structure query, OLAP. The word processing actually does talk to a process, but it's actually a tool, and I'll explain why. And the dashboard is a tool. It's a tool that you use. So these are nouns. The only word in here that's not really a noun is this OLAP. For OLAP is the P, the processing part, which is actually a verb. But I'll explain to you why it's a BI tool, and I think it's quite straightforward. I'm consistent in this. So this is really the summary. If your opinion paper got this and structured this very clearly as to which are tools and which are processes, and put these things under these categories, these are items and nothing else. There's a lot of other things you can put in. You're going to find out about ClickView and Power BI and Cognos, and there's so many tools. They're not tools, are they? They're products that use these tools. So if you wrote about all those things, you didn't use my notes. And if you didn't use my notes, I mean the sources in my notes, the ones I gave you for the OP, then you're going to be misguided. And if you're misguided, it's going to affect your marks. So just once again, the formula for success for your OPs is hand it on time. You read the instructions carefully and use only my sources. Okay, and we spoke about this in other classes. Now I'm just going to reiterate it once again. The formula for success is hand it on time, use only the sources I give you, and this is why, because you'll only have these items, and read the instructions carefully. Okay, so that's just very important when we look at it. So let's start with the just a quick just want to see. The first one is just a definition, or just some definitions I found. So business intelligence tools empower organizations. So enable users to access information. Okay, so the BI data, there's lots of BI data. If the BI data is used, if you add context, you generate information. From that information, you can start to then generate knowledge, and eventually you can generate wisdom. But you need to start with the data, which you can convert into information. So if I randomly told you 24, 36, 21, 49, 52, 25, if I gave you those numbers, there's no context. This is what data is. There's no context. You can remember those numbers and you'll be very confused. The moment I tell you that those are recorded temperatures throughout the day, then all of a sudden there's context. Now you understand that these are actually temperatures that are recorded on operational machinery throughout the day. Then you can start looking at, oh, well, why are some higher, why are some lower, and you can start drilling, and you can start looking as to understanding why the temperatures vary and what influences the temperatures, and that's when you start having intelligence, which can help drive decision. Okay, so that's just to give you some background information to help you understand. So you get BI data. The BI data, put it into context, you can start getting information when it's in context. And that information is what helps drive decisions in your organization and helps. And then once you have knowledge, you can start being intuitive. So all of a sudden you can set an alert on your dashboard. So the temperature on a machinery, I gave you all these numbers. Let's say you have a limit. It must be between X and Y temperature. So you can set a dashboard up that shows you the temperature. And the moment it hits to below or above the desired temperature, you get an alert. Once the manager has an alert, or it's someone, a decision maker, or someone with influence, they can go run to the floor where the machine is and they can see what's going on because something's not right. Maybe they need to turn the machine off, stop production, whatever it is, but they will then use their knowledge and wisdom to deal with a problem. But you need the data to give you information, and that information then will help drive decision making. And that's really what these tools are there to do. So you've got tools and processes that are used alongside each other to do something. So that's really how it works in a nutshell. So it's not just about delivering reports from a data warehouse, it's about providing large numbers of people, executives. So depending on the organization, you've got a big company, a lot of people need to know what's going on to help them access the right information so that they can make better decisions. It's the same like when you do anything in life, the more information you have, it can help empower you make a decision. Until you have too much information as well, you can also have that problem where you have too much information and then you're confused. But if someone told you what are you going to do next year when you leave here and you don't have any information, you don't really know what to do. But the moment you start searching about what jobs are available and finding out some things, you start gathering information. From that information, you're then able to help make a decision. You can even set a dashboard up in the economy to tell you what to do based on availability of jobs. You can look at job adverts. You can look at economic sectors that are booming because you'll know that there'll be more opportunities where sectors are booming. You can look at economic sectors that are declining. So you can set your own criteria up to watch information to tell you what job, to give you an idea as to where you should look for a job when you leave here. You can also do that. And that's not necessarily BI, but the process is the same. The reason why it's not BI because it's not internal information, because BI only deals with internal information. That's information outside. But it's the same process that companies need to use to make decisions. So what are the tools used for? Processing quickly and intelligently, effectively, enabling employees to respond faster and more efficiently to changing conditions that affect their organization, transforming raw data into intuitive, illustrative reports quickly and easily. So some people, you must always remember, some people see things in numbers. You can hand them an Excel spreadsheet and they're happy. They'll look at the Excel spreadsheet, they'll tell you what they found. Some people, you hand them an Excel spreadsheet and they don't understand what is going on. But you show them a picture and they are happy. They understand, it has meaning to them, they're very happy. The same people maybe who like the Excel spreadsheet will say, this is not really good, this lacks something. So you must always remember that different people like different things. So whenever you're designing a BI tool or a dashboard or a final output, a report, whatever you're designing, bear that in mind. You must accommodate different users, the different things that different users like. Okay, so it's ETL. So we're going to look now at ETL. So remember, ETL we said was a process because these three things, extracting, transferring, and loading, are part of the processes. And so this is a process, ETL. So in a final assessment or something, you might be asked about ETL. You can see extract each. There's two, you can write quite a bit on ETL. This sometimes can be a question for 10 marks, anywhere up to 10 marks on ETL. Okay, so just remember the most marks you can write is about 10 on ETL. So if you're asked for ETL, to explain ETL for 5 marks, you must write 5 marks worth. If you're asked for 10 marks, you can write 10 marks worth. So it's very important that you stick to the guidelines, which is very, very important. So let's start. Let's look at this quickly. So ETL is a process that extracts data from source systems. So you have the data. It has to be, you have elements that are used to collect information, collect data. So you're going to have tools or things that collect data. So it doesn't matter what, every organization has different things. If you are looking at in a production environment, maybe you have sensors, equipment that has sensors, those sensors will pick up data. If you're looking at the banking environment, maybe you're going to look at the amount of loans that you gave out in one day. Maybe there's a certain limit amount of money that you want to lend. Then you also look on the other side of how many people didn't pay their loans back. That's bad debt. These are things that your organization has to manage as a bank. Is how much money do you lend? How much money is not being paid back? How much bad debt is there? These are all sorts of things that you track. Sorry, there's just someone. Can I just appeal to you all just to mute your microphones? So if you've joined, can you maybe just mute your microphone? Thank you. So bad debt is important in banking. Every environment has different things. As a lecturer, I need to watch your marks. I need to look out for people that are doing well, people that are doing badly. Generally, those are the two things we watch out for. And those are the things we try and track. The people that are doing badly, we try and encourage them to do more. And the people that are doing well, everyone, obviously, we need to encourage to get better marks. But they're a concern. If a certain amount of people fail, then it's an at-risk module. So we have criteria as lecturers that we look out for, and we can develop a dashboard based on your marks that tell us what's going on, so we can identify early at-risk students. So this is just a little bit about how the data, where it comes from. It can come from anything that you do inside your organization. Remember, it's internal. Okay. So you collect data in your organization in different formats. It can come in. The marks might be percentages. So it can be in different formats. It might be a mark out of 50, out of 100. It might be a collective mark that's an average. There's different types of, in different formats. And these things you have to remember that whatever you get, information you get, it has a format. And that format is very important, that you manipulate it, get it to the format you want it in, so that you can have sense and make meaning from it. Okay, and then you've got common data sources formats that you use. You've also got, things like your structures. So remember, there can be these information you pull from various places, okay? So what this is telling us is that it doesn't all come in the same format, that it comes in different formats. And you have to get it into formats that you're going to use. So if I pull information from a Blackboard about your marks, it might be in CSV format, which is a Excel compatible format. And it might be comma delimited, or it might use different formats. And it can come from it might come from a database, a relational database, a non-relational database. Okay, so it's very important that you remember, you have to know that you're getting information from different formats. You have to extract it. And you've got to get it into the right source format that you need. Okay, so that's very important to know. So it's an intrinsic part of extraction is parsing. So parsing is analysis of your extracted data. It results in a check to see if the data meets the expected pattern or structure. So like anything in life, as soon as you collect something, let's say we went out into the field to collect food, whatever food you find, you would check it. So if you pick an apple off a tree, you're going to check it. Is it good? Is it fit for eating now? Is it fit for eating later? You have to check to see if it meets well, is it good? Let's say I'm hungry now and I'm looking for food in the field. I'm not going to go pick a non-ripe apple. Okay, or if I find a rotten apple, maybe I want to use it to make my own cider or something. I don't know. What can you use rotten apples for? It's fermenting. Maybe there's a use for a fermented apple. I don't know. And really, during lockdown, it might be very useful. So these are things you have to remember: is that it has to meet what you're looking for. So you need to check it. Again, if it's not right, you have to reject it. You can't put bad data into your database or your data warehouse. If it's not right, you have to let it go. Same as food. You can't take poisonous food and put it into your supper and then eat it. There's going to be consequences, sometimes very extreme consequences. Same, your database can't have information that's not in the right format, that's not usable. You have to be very careful. You have to check it and make sure it's right. If it's not right, it's got to go. The saying garbage in, garbage out is a very popular term in the BI world or in the data world. You must make sure that your data is fit for purpose. Okay, and you check it. Okay, transfer or first. So once you've got your information that's come from various sensors or various places in your organization or various reports or wherever it comes from, you then have to make sure that it's then transformed into something useful. So you've got to transfer it from one to the other. Maybe if it's a format, you've got to transfer the format or transform it into something useful that's fit for the end target. And then once it's ready for the end target, then you've got to load it into the end target. So those are the three processes that are very important. Within ETL is considered one process, but it really comprises of three individual processes. And those three processes come together to make a very important part of taking data from a source and putting it into a place where you're going to use it. That's the whole process of taking it from a source and putting it somewhere where you want to use it. Okay, so once you've extracted it, it needs to go to a data store, what I call a data store. And data stores can come in various formats. It can be a database, a data mart, or a data warehouse. Those are the most popular ones. So you've got data stores. I just call it data store because it can be in different formats. Okay, can be a database, can be a data mart, can be a data warehouse. So let's discuss quickly or briefly the differences between these different entities, database, or these different tools, because that's a tool, because they're not verbs. This is a noun. A database is a noun. It's an item. It's a physical something. Okay, even though you can't see a database, it's sitting on a hard drive somewhere, but you can see the representation of a database. Okay, and if you can actually drill down and see the source code of a database, which wouldn't really be of much use to you, but you can actually see that. So it's a noun, it's a tool. So traditionally, databases are organized into, this is very important, you've got fields, files, and records. So a field is a single piece of information. A record consists of a complete set of fields. Okay, and a file consists of lots of records. So let's just take, I'm looking right now, I have a piece of paper, an analog piece of paper with your class list on it. Okay, and on my class list, I've got the following things. I've got your last name, I've got your first name, I've got your username, which is a student number, and then I've got your OP1 mark on this piece of paper. And this could actually be a database, a physical representation of a database. So let's discuss this. A field. This is a single piece of information. So your one person's last name can be a field. So on here, I'm just gonna I got Cars and Hill, and I've got Toka, and I've got Davids, and I've got Kazi, and these are just names. I'm randomly mentioning last names. Those are fields. Then a record. If I've got one student's first name, last name, student number, and mark for OP1, that could be a record. Or all your marks, doesn't matter. I've only got OP1 at the moment. That can be a record. Okay. So then in a file is a collection of, so everyone's last names, first names, usernames, and OP1 marks all together create a file. So that's what a field, a file, and a record is. It's important that you understand that. I think there's a video, I've got a link to a video that you can go and look in your own time, which also explains it quite nicely and clearly. It's something I do recommend you go and have a look at. We don't really deal a lot with that it doesn't really show up in the assessments that you're going to do. Maybe in the definitions test it might come out. But it's important if you ever go into the world of BI that you understand this very basic, very simple, basic concept. And from that concept, a lot of concepts are built. The difference between field, file, and a record. It's very important that you understand that. Okay, then a database. These are managed by a database management system. So it's also very important that you manage your database. It has a system that actually manages your database. And this allows you to add, delete, store, retrieve data from the database. So, I mean, just an example. It's not a good example, but it's just an example that you can relate to. If I gave you an Excel file on a USB drive and I gave it to you, it has no use to you until you plug it in and open it up with Excel, which is like a database management system of sorts. Because once you've opened up an Excel, you can view it, you can copy data in, you can add to it, you can delete things, you can do something with it. Okay. So I'm not saying that Excel is a database management system of sorts. I'm not directly saying, I'm just saying it's a representation. It's a good way of looking at database management system. Okay, but it's not a good example. It's just one you can relate to. Data mart. So after database, the next, in terms of size, the next thing to look at would be a data mart. So a data mart really is a subset of a data store, and we're going to get to data stores later. So before we get there, maybe we should just say this, that a data store is like a place where you put everything. So think of it in your house. Okay, I live in a house with many rooms. Maybe you're staying now as a student in a one-room bachelor apartment or something. That's also fine. You can think of it, there's different sections in your room. Maybe you've got a place where you sleep. You've got your bed and you've got your cupboard. You put your things, and you've got you might have another area where you can make some food, another area where you can wash yourself and go to the toilet. And these are subsets, okay, of a complete room that you're living in. Or in my house, I've got a bathroom, bedroom, TV room. I've got a garden. These are different, and together they form the big house, but they can be broken down into subsets. And to give you an example, just to use this metaphor, the house, you do different things in different rooms. So my bedroom is generally for sleeping and relaxing. Okay, I don't have a TV there right now, but most time a lot of people do. So there's certain things you do. So I know there's certain times I'm going to go to my bedroom, and then there's things that I didn't do in the bathroom. So when I wake up in the morning, I'll go for a shower, and then I'm going to shave. Ladies also shave too, shave their legs or whatever. But there's different things you do in a bathroom, and then there's different things you do in the kitchen. When I'm hungry, I'm going to go to the kitchen. So they have different purposes. Same with the data mart. There's a purpose. It's a subset. So maybe in your organization you have different business units, or whatever you call them, and they have different places to put their information. So let's look at a typical company like let's think of something we all know, a brand we all know. Let's look at Apple. So Apple has many different units in Apple. It's a big multinational company. It's got different locations and it's got different units. Maybe there's people in marketing at Apple. There are people in sales at Apple. There are people in distribution, logistics to make sure that their products get to their stores, to organize the movement of their product from manufacturing to the stores. There are also people that look at research and development at Apple, which is very important for Apple because they've got a very innovative product. So they need to have data for research and development. And then they might have another department that just looks at user data. You know how much data you generate for Apple every day if you've got an Apple device or an Android device, if you've got Sony, or that's why there's all these legal cases going on. these companies are tracking you, or they track your movements. They know, these companies know you better than Google knows you, better than anyone, because Google has most of their data, but there's a lot of other data that Google doesn't have on you, like your app usage and things like that. So really, these companies have so much data, and they need to store it in subsets. And that's what they do. They have subsets where they store it in those data marts. And why is it important to look at data marts? Number one item might be they need a special data model to use. So maybe for different divisions, they use different data models. They can't really put them all together, so they separate them for the data model, restructured for OLAP. Why also performance? If they had to look at if all the information is sitting all together and wasn't categorized, it would take a long time to search for it. So imagine your house or where you're staying now didn't have any rooms. Okay, maybe it doesn't, but different sections. Maybe your stuff was all just in a pile in the middle of your dorm or your studio, your bachelor apartment, all just in one pile in the middle of the middle, next to your bed. Everything, from your cutlery to your cooking appliances to your iron to, I don't know, your TV. It's just all in one pile in the floor in the middle. Then I ask you, well, go and find your shoes to go for a run. And then you look at me going, oh my gosh, I have to search all this stuff. Where did I put my running shoes? That's an example. That's why you move things and you put it neatly in places, organized, so when you need it, you know how to find it. So if they want just marketing data, they know where to find it. If they want, I don't know, R&D data, they know where to find it. It's not all together, all mixed up. Okay. And then also for security. So maybe at Apple, your company, not everyone needs to see everything. Okay, it's like at most companies, HR information is quite confidential. So the amount of money that UJ pays me is not something that my fellow colleagues should have access to, for various reasons. And we won't really go into that now. But that's just the norm, is that you wouldn't have that information, what I get paid. Also, the students don't maybe know what the lecturers get paid, or I don't know. They separate this information. So there's reasons why you would separate, just for security and ethics. So that's another reason why. Okay, so that's what a data mart is. It's a subset. A good example is rooms in a house, or sections if you're not staying in a house, you're staying in a flat, or one room, you're sharing a house somewhere, you've got one room. You will structure everything in some form of order, some format and order. And that's how data marts work. And the reasons why is for either you need to work in it a special way, it has to be calibrated in a special data model so you can use it, so you isolate it, or for performance, just to get efficiently to things, you isolate, or for security. Those are the main reasons. Then the data warehouse. Sorry, I actually haven't been looking at questions, so I'm just going back. Okay, so just technology gift. You said, can OLAP is it debatable whether OLAP is a tool or process? So maybe gift later, I would like to hear at the end of the class what your thoughts are on that. But we actually need to hurry along. But I do want to hear what you have to say on that. Sorry, Gift, I'm only acknowledging you now. And that was about 10 or 15 minutes ago. Gift mentioned that, so we can get to that. So notice the time now. So let's have a look quickly at data warehouse. So data warehouse, I've already explained this. I'm not going to spend it. It's a big collection. It can be broken into data marts, which are subsets, but it's a big collective repository. And there's two approaches in a data warehouse. You get a normalized, and then you get a dimensional approach. So also it's very important that if you write about data warehouses, also that there's two different types. Most people, if they ask a question in an assessment, they forget that there's two different types, normalized and dimensional. So normalized, things are grouped together by subject areas that reflect general categories. Okay, the advantage is that it's straightforward. The disadvantage is that it's difficult for users to join data from different sources into something meaningful. So if you're storing your data in a normalized fashion, you would have categorized it for ease of use, straightforward, and you can add to it. But the thing is, when you want to start then manipulating that data and join things on, it starts to become a little bit tricky. Dimensional, this information, facts are general numeric transactions. Dimensions are reference information, give context to facts. So this over here, it's easy for the user to understand and use. It's got different dimensions. Okay, and from there it's difficult to set up and load. So normalized, it's far easier to store as the information comes in, you just track it and you put it somewhere, but it's not highly contextualized. Dimensional, there's different dimensions to it, then you start contextualizing this information. Okay, the advantage of doing this is that it's easy for the user to understand it in a dimensional way, but it's difficult to set up and load. So think of it as just an example is, imagine people handed you groceries to pack in a cupboard. Okay, each grocery item is a type of data or data. And one way you can do is you just pack everything next to each other. You go boom, 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 and you pack it all next to each other. In the same order it came in, you just pack it. But this is sometimes difficult then it can look a little bit disjointed. So it's easy to bring it in and it's easy to add more. You just carry on adding. There's no real dimensions. But maybe you want to pack your grocery cupboard differently. You want to maybe categorize it according to the type of item that it is, or it's you can do it differently. Let's for now stick to one way of doing it. Is put starches with starches, put cereals with cereals. So you put your pap and your rice together. Maybe you're going to put breakfast cereals together. Maybe you like, I don't know, I eat Future Life sometimes. Maybe you've got cornflakes. Put the Future Life, the cornflakes, the Cocoa Pops together. Maybe you've got tin food, so you put all the tin food together. Maybe you want to separate the tin food. Some are meat tin food or protein tin food, and some are just vegetables. I don't know, and fruits. I don't know. So you can, when you start categorizing, put in different dimensions, then it takes longer to load it in. Okay, but when it comes to understanding it, it might be easier to understand it that way. It just depends on your use and what you want to do. Okay, that's just a contextualized example of dimensional and normalized. I hope that helps. So data mining. So this is one of the processes. Remember, because it's mining, it's a verb. Mining is doing something. So data mining is another process. So in the beginning, so this work is actually not delivered in a very organized way. It's not the way I'm giving this information has been normalized. It's not dimensional because I haven't put the tools and processes together. I don't know if you've noticed that. So the approach for this class is not dimensional, it's normalized. The reason why it's normalized is because I haven't put the tools and processes together. I'm just giving it to you in an order. And the order might not make sense. Okay. So that's just another contextual example of the difference between normalized and dimensional. So a process, mining is a process. You use the tools to mine. So the mining is the complete process of what you do with your BI data, or the whole cycle of getting the information, taking it from a source to taking it right to the end is mining. Okay, and that's what data mining is. And over there, you use the tools and mine. You use the tools and the processes to mine. You need to first use ETL to extract it, transform it and transfer it into something useful, and then put it somewhere into a data storage of some sort, whether it's a database, data warehouse, data mine. Then you take tools which are SQL and OLAP, and then you go and mine it. Okay. So then this might help you in this next section on the two tools, main tools, SQL and OLAP. This might help you understand it. We're going to discuss them now. So SQL is the most basic of the two tools that we discuss. The two of the main processing tools, data processing, SQL and OLAP. So SQL is pronounced SQL. It's SQL, but people say SQL. Some people say SQL. It's actually there's a divide as to what it is, but you either say SQL or you say SQL. People should understand you. And it's a language that's used. It was developed by It came from Oracle. Okay, it's used by Oracle, IBM, and Microsoft. Okay, it's a very, very, very important basic language, and it's very good for simple tasks. So if you're, let's go back to the temp. Let's record. Let's just say, let's use the grocery items again. Whenever you buy grocery items, what the things, the kind of data that you have on each grocery item, there might be a few things. The one thing would be maybe the name of the product, okay, the brand of the product. So maybe you're going to buy, let's give you an example we can all relate to, maybe say Koo can of beans. So on the tin, there's lots of data, but the data maybe we're looking for is Koo is the brand, okay, then beans, canned beans and tomato sauce, whatever's on the label, there'll be a description. So I'll tell you what it is. So the brand, the description. Also on the tin is going to be a weight. Okay, that's another form of data. There's a weight. And then also there's going to be an expiry date. And that information you almost have on all your grocery items you buy. Whether you buy cornflakes, there's going to be it's Kellogg's or whatever brand you buy. The description, they're called cornflakes. You go to the category where you're going to have the weight. What weight is it on the box? It'll tell you. And then the expiry date. Okay, this is just example, and you go and buy all your groceries. From your groceries, you can do you can create a SQL. So you create a basic database from all your groceries. Then I can ask you, what is the heaviest grocery item you have in your cupboard? And from that database, it'll quickly see which is the greatest weight. And remember, the weights have to all be uniform. So this is part of transferring and loading. So it's a very good example that you can't have grams and kilograms and milligrams all together in one database, because the database won't then understand that. So you have to convert everything into the most useful format. And the most useful format when you talk about groceries, most probably would be grams, because milligram is a very, very, very small amount. Most of your groceries won't be in milligrams, but if we're dealing with medicine, you might have to look at milligrams. So it's very important that you remember this. Okay. Very, very, very important that you remember this. So this is a very good example of SQL. So what is the heaviest grocery item that you've got? And you put all this information into a SQL database, and then you can run a very basic query. It'll tell you, it's going to be the pocket of potatoes that we bought. Okay, because the pocket of potatoes are what they're now. They're 5 kilograms, I think, currently. But you can get smaller. You also get smaller quantities. But if you've got a big pocket, it's 5 kilograms. You also get 5 kilograms of milli meal. So what's the heaviest grocery items that you've got? And it'll tell you. I don't know what you're going to do with that information in a business, but I'm just giving you a realistic example now. In the business, you look at for different things. You're not maybe concerned about grocery items and how heavy they are. But that's just the example I'm giving in a business. Another quick example would be, maybe you want to know who sold, if you have, sorry, there's a lot of noise coming through.
Really likes to search it.
Can I ask you to mute your devices? Okay, so an example in a business might be which store. Maybe you've got a store like Nando's. You've got Nando's stores all over the world. They're everywhere in the world now, but maybe let's focus on Gauteng region. You can run a SQL query to see which store sold the most food. Well, not the most food. They had the greatest amount of sales for the day. Which store had the least amount of sales for the day? Which store sold, what was the average for the region? Okay, those are things that you can do in a SQL database. Then you get OLAP. So there's a video you can watch, a very good video that explains SQL SQL to help you. Then you get OLAP. So OLAP now looks at things in a lot more depth. It's very important when you look at OLAP. So now let's use the Nando example. If you want to know which store performed the best compared to their daily average, Okay, and their daily average is influenced by the day of the week. So you'll notice that in restaurants, some restaurants will be busier over weekends or Fridays and quieter in the week. And this is a mass generalization. It's not always the case, but your company Nanas will know all this information. And if I ask you which store performed the best based on their average, so they had the most gains, they had the most positive gain in terms of sales compared to their average, which is based on the day of the week, maybe also the month, depending on how they can make it very complicated if they want. That information you then run an OLAP query. So it has to first aggregate what is the averages of all the stores. It has to look at, once it knows the averages, then it compares the averages against the daily sales, and then it can filter it down to find out which stores performed best based on compared to their averages. And those show you which stores had the most growth for the day. Okay, and that's also maybe something good to track. So even though it's maybe not the best performer, but it grew the most on that day, that might be very useful. Then you can say, okay, to know over the day is fine, but let's see which stores grew the most based on comparing their daily averages over a whole month. Now it has to calculate each store, what is their daily averages, add them all up, which is their monthly average, and then compare that and then come up with which stores maybe are growing the most. Okay, and that's another way of looking at it. So that's what OLAP is. It's far more complicated. It relies on aggregated information. OLAP cubes, which we're going to look at just now, have often aggregated information inside them. So maybe you want to start averaging each, as it goes along, it'll start averaging the daily information. So it pre-processes certain aggregates. Aggregates is a collection of things together. And then from those aggregates, they can run a query quickly because it's got aggregated information within those cubes. Okay, and OLAP deals with far more complex queries. So OLAP's used in business for reporting. They're often used in business process management, for budgeting, for forecasting, for financial reporting. They use multi-dimensional models or cubes, which I'm going to show you. They're very good for ad hoc queries, and generally they have fast execution time because they've pre-processed some things. Okay, and this starts moving the focus away from what is the best sales of the day to start maybe looking at things like why. Why is that store grown the most? Why is that store maybe shrunk or reduced the most in terms of their sales? They can start looking at to answer the why questions, which are a little bit harder to uncover. And this requires you to start drilling down and really looking at data in a very thorough processing way. And that's what OLAP is. So that's why Gift, I don't know if later on, if you wanted to talk to me, that's why I see OLAP as definitely being a tool and not a process. Yes, the tool has to process the information, but it's a tool to get the data to come out with something significant. It's a tool that I use. Tools are things that you use. So once the data is sitting in a data store, and a data store has a tool, is a tool because it stores information. It's a tool to store information. Then I need a tool to analyze that information. Then I need a tool to report that information. And that's why I see it as tools. Gift. I don't know, but we can chat about that later. OLAP looks at cubes or multi-dimensional. We spoke about hypercubes, and it aggregates information to allow for fast response time. Okay, then just to remember, in OLAP, you've got different types of OLAP, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. You can read up about it. I'm not really going to ask you to, in a lot of depth, explain this, but you need to know that there are different types of OLAP and the characteristics of the different types of OLAP. So you've got a multi-dimensional OLAP, you've got relational OLAP, you've got desktop OLAP, or dynamic OLAP. So the desktop OLAP refers to some instances that's what the OLAP is desktop, but maybe here we're going to talk about it as dynamic OLAP. Okay. So you've got different types of OLAP. So when I said it was done by IBM, I'm actually mistaken, and I was also not sure when I said it's Microsoft that developed OLAP. So please forgive me. Earlier on I said it was IBM. IBM use it. The big companies extensively use this language, but it was developed by Microsoft. So please, it's just a correction from my side. So this is what a cube looks like. So here's examples of cubes, and for the sake of time, I noticed that it is 6:30. And ideally, we'd like to end now, but this class is very important, and maybe it's going to be a little bit longer. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but these are what cubes look like. You've got different dimensions. Over here, they've got toys. Over here by my cursor, they've got dolls. In the middle block, you've got dolls, cars, and robots. And in the other dimension, you've got quarters. You've got time, Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. So maybe you've got manufacturing toys, or maybe you're selling toys. Doesn't matter either way. You've still got different types of dolls. You've got a category called dolls. There's 4 dolls here. But maybe you want to look at 4 dolls in total, but how many dolls did you manufacture or sell over a quarter? Or you can change it to a location in a different country. Okay? So this is looking at things from a multi-dimensional perspective. And the cube. So there's a great YouTube video. I encourage you after the class or whenever you're preparing later on to go and look at the YouTube video. It'll help you understand these cubes and how OLAP Cube works. It's a very informative way. So dashboard. So we're getting near the reporting type of tools. So we're getting there towards the end of the class. So dashboards are snapshots of what happened. So they tell you in that instant, and they can be dynamic because they can change as you're watching. They can be real-time dashboards. But sometimes they are updated every, depending on the need. It really just depends on the business environment. Some are live, and as something happens, it'll tell you something's happened. And some maybe are updated every 5 or 10 minutes. It really just depends on the need of do you need to know each instant? Everyone would love to know each instant what's happening, but it's expensive to run that kind of, you then have to look at BI 2.0 and real-time streaming and in-memory streaming and look at things, and it can get very expensive to do it, but it just depends on it. So it's just, so an example is a car scenario is very good, is that when you're driving your car, you've got a dashboard that can tell you how much fuel is left in your tank, how fast you're driving, do you have any assistant aids on, like your lights, or if you're turning a corner, it'll tell you that it'll show you that you're indicating. If you're in an automatic car, it might show you what gear you're in. Each dashboard is customized to the car and the specification on the car. The newer cars don't, but a lot of cars tell you how fast your engine's turning. It's your revolutions per minute, which is linked to how hard your foot is on the accelerator. So all these things are noted in the as part of a car dashboard. So it's a snapshot, tells you what's happening. Your business can have a dashboard. Maybe you got Nando's, you got all your stores, and you're watching them every 10 minutes get updated to the sales for each store. And maybe you're also looking at the stock levels, how much stock is left in the store, and you'll know how much stock is left in the store because you can tell how much stock they're buying from you. And maybe you want an alert to tell you that when stores are running low on stocks, it gives you an alert. You can automate it as well. It can send an email to the manager of that store to say, hey, you're running out of chicken breasts. You really need to go and order chicken breasts. You can actually preempt the order, can actually start an order for you. And all you need to do is just okay it, say yes. And it'll order in the chicken breast from the franchisor. And the franchisor will control those kind of things. They will then control the orders. So that's very, very important to have a dashboard. Very useful. Different dashboards for different businesses. Right now, I'm sure you would love a dashboard to tell you how you're performing in BI. Okay, you've only done one item for me. But a dashboard that shows your marks, that as you go along, you've got a dashboard on yourself, and you can just check all your classes where you are. Sort of what's your average mark? How on time are you with handing your work in? I mean, you could do very interesting things with dashboards just from your perspective as being a student at the University of Johannesburg. You can have a dashboard in terms of how your year is going. You can have dashboards for a lot of different things. So, and then from that, so just quickly, I didn't There are other reporting tools like graphs and spreadsheets. So these are graphs are visual things. We spoke about them right in the beginning. We spoke about graphs. They're visual, and spreadsheets are numerical. They're also tools that you can use, a graph and a spreadsheet, to help you make a decision. Okay, so that's not also in the notes, but they're also part of the visual tools. So considerations, when you're looking at BI and you want to develop BI, how do these things all fit together? You must understand the process from start to finish, which is, I'm going to show you this picture just now. But these are the things also you need to understand. So if let's say you work for a consultancy, giving a name that comes off the head, people that I worked with fairly recently at Datacentrix. There's so many, but Datacentrix is one we worked with quite recently in my job. And we looked at a number of things, but you must first understand what's the client's needs. So a lot of companies we're operating in the cloud, which means it's web-based. But it doesn't have to be a web-based solution. If they want to be our solution, start to finish solution, is it online or is it on site? Is it on site? Are you going to back it up online? Where are you going to back it up? How often are you going to back it up? These are things to look at. OLAP. So which kind of OLAP would you best be suited for what you want to do? You have to know the different types of OLAPs, their benefits and their disadvantages, that you can select the right kind of OLAP. Also know where what does this company want to do in the future? Will the OLAP, current version of OLAP, or the approach they're using to drill down and mine the information, the tool, is it compatible with what you maybe want in the future? How easily do the BI tools, can they be customized or embedded with other applications? So the challenge in any organization is that you're running around with legacy systems and information and all sorts of different things, and you're trying to put them together to create this super BI system or solution, but there are limitations because of the type of information and the historical information that you're storing. So it's really something that a lot of organizations have to be careful with. So how common is the framework? So the metadata securities, these things, you're trying to pull things in from all sorts of places. Do they fit together? It's like if you're making a recipe and you're making, how can you put ice cream in your spaghetti bolognese sauce? And you can. And if you did, what would it do? It would make it creamier and it would make it sweeter. So if you want to have creamier and sweeter spaghetti bolognese, try it. Put ice cream in. Okay, but there's properties to ice cream and there's properties to spaghetti bolognese, the sauce. And some of the properties don't go so well together because ice cream is frozen and the bolognese sauce is generally consumed and cooked at a very high temperature. So when you put them together, it's going to change. The consistency can change a lot. I know it's a food example, but it's relevant. When you put things together, do they fit? What is the metadata around it and the structure? Security as well. What's the security around the information that you're sharing? Another thing to look at is whether services can be distributed across multiple servers and platforms. So these are all sorts of things that you have to consider. So on that note, before we finish up, this comes up in a final assessment. This is a very good diagram, a picture to explain. Please just take note. This is very, very good. It's come up a lot in the assessments in the past. And this is a process from sort of start to finish, showing you from the data sources to the data processes and the data tools to a final representation at the end. And this is very, very, very important. There are a number of things here. So take note, when you are looking at this for an assessment, you need to look at each and every single element in this picture. There are different types of documents. There's A and B, from source A and from source B. Both of them are going into ETL. That doesn't say ETL, just TL. It's just the transformation and loading part of ETL phase. Obviously, the ETL is applied because it has to take it from somewhere. But there's transformation and loading. Then from there, it's going into a document base. And the document base is some form of data storage facility. So it can be a database, it can be a data mart, data warehouse. They're not specific, And then from there, they're developing modeling cubes. The modeling cubes are used for what? I heard you all saying OLAP. Thank you. Well done. So then there's some OLAP process. And then from those cubes, then you're using a tool, which is part of OLAP. They say OLAP user is going, and there's some tool processed to get a final representation at the end. So please, when you're dealing with this in an assessment, please look at each and every item in this picture to develop some story, come up with something, some process from start to finish. That's just the hint I want to give you, or clue. If this comes up in assessment, you'll know what to do. You have to discuss it all, which is what we've done in the class, but you now have to piece it together. I haven't pieced it together. You have to take all the information I've given you and start piecing it together in a way, in a logical way that represents these pictures, because the pictures from left to right are very logical, from a data source to a presentation at the end, which this is a presentation in the form of a spreadsheet. As you can see, it looks like a spreadsheet. Okay. And then just a summary overview, so different of the BI tools. Just an overview of the tools. So we've got data storages, which are data marts, data warehouse. You've got data processing tools, okay, OLAP and SQL. And then you've got representation tools, which give you some output at the end, to graphs, spreadsheets, and dashboards. That's just to categorize the different types of BI tools. And then questions. So now we're going to go into questions. I'm going to go to the screen. Sorry, I wasn't. Okay, so the one comment I've got here from Tandeka says that OLAP was actually confusing on whether it's a tool, process, or both. And just for this course, I've got it down as a tool. And I'll explain why. If you want to have it as both, you can. I'm not going to argue with you. Not say argue. It's not that we're arguing about it, but I have different views to you. But if you explain why, and you're consistent with the why, then and you've explained clearly why, you've categorized as something, then you know what, I'm definitely going to look at it. But if you're just not sure and you just then categorize it as something without explaining why, you're showing me that you don't then have the understanding. And if you don't have the understanding, then it's going to affect your marks in the opinion paper. Is there any other questions or comments that people want to make?
Okay, Doc. Hlavelan here.
Hi there.
I wanted to check. So on the processes of BI, it's only the ETL. That's the process.
No, it's ETL and data mining.
Oh, okay.
Data mining is the start to finish, like that diagram, that figure that I showed you, from start to finish. Data mining. So mining is a verb, and ETL, extraction, are three different verbs that are into one integrated process, if you can call it. Yeah. So it's the data mining and the ETL. The other items were seen as tools. So if you use my sources, everything else that you saw then would be categorized as a tool.
Okay.
So if we go back to, my screen is still being shared. If I just go back to this, in the start, yeah, I'll start again at the end. That's where I started. Can you see there?
Yes. I was just a bit late.
Okay, great. Okay, wonderful. But yeah, that's just to summarize. That's kind of, if that's what your OP looks like, that's fine. Because say if you have something else, that's also okay. You need to explain why. If you don't explain why, you just say this is this, and you don't explain why, then I have a different opinion to you. But if you explain why, then like I say, it's your opinion. But the information I gave you should have led you down a path where you start to see it this way. Okay. Is there any other questions? Okay, so someone's asking about OP3, and I have to just briefly talk about OP3 as well. So let's do it now briefly. OP3, there's a question, someone said, can you use animation? You're more than welcome to use animation. So you can use animation if you want. There's different types of animation. I don't want to tell you, start listing them. OP3, you need to explore your creativity. You can do things creatively in OP3. I just want to change my screen share. To my study guide. Hold on. I just want to switch to the study guide. I do need to discuss briefly with you. Hold on, I'm just trying to get my study guide loaded. So hopefully just now you're going to see the study guide. So please, once again, it's very important that you read the instructions. Remember, the formula for success in OPs is read the instructions, hand in on time, and use the given sources. Okay, and when it says read the instructions, it also means if you read them, you do what I ask. So please, to follow this guideline over here, you need to create a 3-minute video. Okay, in brackets it says 3 minutes and 30 seconds is the ultimate max, which means I want a 3-minute video, not a 2.5-minute video. I want a 3-minute video. But if you go past 3.5 minutes, I'm going to stop watching. So if there's marks for conclusion, there's a marking mark sheet here. If your conclusion falls outside 3.5 minutes, you're going to lose 10 marks. You're going to get 0 for conclusion. That just shows you the seriousness of the time allocation. If you see, I want 30 seconds for introduction, 2 minutes for where you show the difference between BI 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0, and then I want a conclusion for 30 seconds. If you add those times up, it gives you 3 minutes. The 3 minutes 30 just means I stop at 3 minutes 30. So whatever you do, whatever you miss, you get 0 for, because it fell outside of 3 minutes. I stop marking. Okay. So it's a 3-minute video. It's a video presentation. You can do what you want. You can be creative. You can use animation. You can use video footage of yourself. You can use all sorts of things. I'm not going to say what you're going to do, but there's two important elements. There needs to be a picture that changes. So that's some form of picture that changes. It can't be stagnant. You can't have one picture for the whole video. It has to change. And there needs to be audio. Audio means I need to hear something. Whether it's your voice, a computer speaking a script, or whatever, there's different very creative things you can do. So very important. Also, what's also very important over here is that you have to upload it into YouTube and send the link. I only want the link to be submitted through the assignment link. There's an assignment link over there. So you can copy and paste your link in a comment. There's a place where you can comment, and you copy and paste your link over there. Under the assignments, there's a place you see where you can send your comments. And that's where you're going to put it. I'll also maybe send more communication out on this. But it's very important for the video presentation. 3 minutes is the length I want. I stop at 3:30, but I want 3 minutes. Okay, and it needs to be uploaded in YouTube. It needs to have a picture. There has to be something to see, and the picture has to change. How often it changes, I'm not too. There's not a lot of criteria on that, but it needs to change, and there needs to be audio, and the audio needs to tell me, be aligned with the pictures. So the pictures and the audio need to be aligned. Okay. And you can be creative as to what you want to do. You can use animation, and you can do what you want. Just something for you to remember. You have to upload on YouTube. I don't know how good your bandwidth is. I don't know how good your signal is. I'm very blessed at the moment. I've got a very fast fiber line, so it's very quick to upload something. But if you don't have a fast line, it can take a long time to upload a very big video. So you need to be cognizant or aware of the file size. So if you want to do a 4K video, good luck. You're going to have a massive file. Be realistic. You get marks. I'll show you in the grid sheet here. We're going to show you. This is what you get marked on. Clarity, picture and sound. You get marks for clarity, but be realistic with your clarity. I understand you don't have a film crew. I understand that it has to be a certain file size. So I'm not going to listen to it on special studio monitors and listen for anything that's outlined and say, oh, it's not clear. I'm going to be realistically looking at the clarity, but the file size is important. You need to take note of the file size. It's your responsibility to come up with a final product that is of a reasonable file size and of a reasonable quality. These are all criteria that I'm aware of. Okay, so if you do have access to 4K recording equipment and your friend's a sound engineer and you want to create this massive professionally produced video, I'm not stopping you, but that's not what I'm asking you to do. Okay, you can do that, but then just good luck if you have a slow line and you want to then upload the video, and the whole YouTube video is 500 megabytes for 3 minutes. It's going to take a long time to upload that 500 megabytes for 3 minutes. Okay, so there's just things you have to balance: the quality and the file, the final product and the file size. There's software that you can use to compress video and audio files. You can really go to town and do all sorts of cool creative things. There are lots of great apps that you can look to employ. My suggestion is have fun. I want you to create. Some people will be good at creating and enjoy this. Some people might not. That's okay. Some people might just prefer typing it. There's different types of assessments that test different people's skills. So that's why we have a video presentation. Yeah, so that's just some guidelines. Very important to look at the mark sheet. That tells you what we're looking for. And the mark sheet's clear. You're going to be marked against this criteria: the introduction. Okay, you're going to be marked. This is obviously on your content. How clearly you show the difference between BI 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and your conclusion. What is your clarity like? How creative are you? Did you try something different and new and unique? Are you just going to do what most of the other people are going to do? I'm not going to say what that is because I don't want to give you ideas. But if you're not very creative, then you're going to lose marks on creativity. And then overall professionalism is the final product. And also remember, I understand that most of you are going to be doing this on a mobile device like a cell phone, and you might do everything on your cell phone or a laptop. I understand what apps are available to the general public free of charge. I'm not expecting professional video, but you can do very well with limited resources these days. There's great apps and cameras on phones these days. On most middle ground phones is pretty good. If you use the right lighting, even on a lesser phone, if you've got good lighting, you can do that. But you don't need to have video from your phone. You can use animation. You can use apps to develop stuff. Please explore, have fun. I hope you enjoy this. I hope this assignment stretches you a little bit, and I hope you have an opportunity to create something and enjoy it. Look at the instructions, read it carefully, upload a link. A link is a URL. Okay, just the URL, so that I can take a URL, I can then copy URL and paste it into the browser, and I will get to your video. That's all I want, just the URL. It has to be on YouTube. Okay, so I'm going to go. Sorry, I've been looking at I'm just going to ask questions. So this is just to answer. So that I hope appreciate. And that's the person who asked more about OP3. Does that answer you? Appreciate. I hope you answered there. Someone asked just how does the appreciate typing, but someone asked how does the minus the percentage work in terms of marks lost? So if you hand in after Hoppus 5, so Hoppus 5 is the time, not midnight. So if you hand in anything after Hoppus 5, it is minus 5% as soon as you go after hoppers 5 on the day, the due date. So let's say you hand in, today is the 13th. Let's say you hand in on the 14th. If you hand it on the 14th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you still lose minus 5%. If you hand in at 6 o'clock, that's 1800 hours, 6 o'clock on the 14th, that's the day after, now all of a sudden you've gone into 10%. So 5:30 is the measuring line. Okay, not midnight. Okay, so if you hand in, so the question says, if I submit my OP tomorrow, do I get minus 5 or minus 10? If you hand in tomorrow before 5:30, it's minus 5. If you're handing it in right now, it's minus 5. Okay, because it's after 5:30. Okay, and if you hand in at 6 o'clock on the day after, all of a sudden it becomes minus 10 because now it's after the 5:30 line. Okay. There's a quick question about OP4. OP4 is the definitions for the tests. There's an assessment of definitions. You do have multiple attempts. You just have a time window when it's open. I'm going to be setting that up. I haven't started setting that up. I'm going to be setting that up. Okay. Are there any, sorry for the long class, are there any final questions? Appreciate us, he's typing. So this is the last. Are there any final questions? For you can say them as well, but go and read the study guide. All the instructions are there as to what to do. Please just follow your OP4 will only be available after OP. So there's a question about when is OP4 available, which is, it's not really an OP, it's the definitions test. The definitions test will be open only after the OP3, which is the video assessment. So it'll be communicated with you very clearly when it'll be open. But it's after then. After the video assessment has been opened and closed.